Hello everybody, thank you for coming. My name is Patrick Jellison. I'm the president of the Bruce County Federation of Agriculture. Tonight we have the Huron-Bruce All Candidates meeting, and thank you for all the candidates for showing up. First of all, I'd just quickly like to apologize. I guess in some media it said that we're beginning at 7, and if you read the Real Voice, we're beginning at 7:30, and obviously we are. Apologize for everybody that came a bit early because of that.
Yeah.
Right there. Okay, anyway, I'll just go on here. The meeting is intended to allow voters of Huron-Bruce to hear the candidates' answers to the issues in Huron-Bruce. The sponsoring groups have set the format as follows, and tonight is brought to you by the Bruce County Federation of Agriculture. Each candidate will have a 2-minute opening statement and 1.5-minute closing statement. Closing statements will begin approximately 9:45. The speaking order was determined before the meeting, and candidates will give their closing statements in reverse order. We're at the end of the night, if we can make it that long. The meeting will then be divided into 2 portions. The first portion allows preset questions to be debated by 2 candidates, and the remaining candidates making comments after each debate. And the second portion will be general written questions from the floor. Each candidate will have 1.5 minutes to respond to each question from the floor in the second segment. The 4 questions from the debate portion of the evening were determined by our group and have been circulated to the candidates ahead of the meeting. The 2 selected candidates will debate each question for 5 minutes. Then the other remaining candidates will have 1.5 minutes to add their comments to that debate. We are going to be strict on time. We've got a timekeeper up front here. He's waving flags and giving signals to stop when you're supposed to stop. And please be fair and give each other equal amount of time to speak. We'll hold to 2 minutes. The written questions for the second segment will be accepted at the back of the table, so if you have anybody else has any more questions, write them down, take them to the back there. You can do that throughout the night. Generally, there are a lot of questions that get brought back there. Robert Emerson's back there who will receive your questions and vet through them. We're going to try to stick to agriculture as much as we can. That's why we're here tonight, and that's why us folks organize the event. Obviously, there will be some overlap in the rural Ontario, but we all live here too. With that, if you need help to write or phrase your question, there are people at the back that will help you do that. Questions addressed to only one candidate will not be asked. Similar questions will be grouped together, and questions on a topic not already discussed will be given a preference. Depending on the number of questions submitted from the floor, we may not have time to ask all the questions, but we'll do our best, and in the past, that has always been the case. Questions with an agriculture focus will obviously be given preference. There will be no oral questions from the audience. If you want to ask questions, write it down. Please do your best. No outbursts. We'll stop the meeting for outbursts until everybody's quiet, and bring the hammer down. And otherwise you'll have to meet with Robert back there. The purpose of this evening is to inform voters of Huron-Bruce where the various candidates stand on the issues. We expect everyone to show respect for those in attendance. We have asked that all signs and posters not belonging to the candidates be left outdoors, and thank you for respecting the rules. Seems like everybody's been here and gone through this before. Again, outbursts and interruptions, please keep them to yourself. And I remind the candidates that the 4 of you it becomes very important to respect these time limits. One more time. Thank you for coming today. And I believe we're about ready to begin. The overhead is not working. Therefore,
there are questions. The pre-written questions that were sent to the candidates in advance are at the back of the meeting, and I can hand them out if you want, just so you know what they are. I was going to have them up, but I didn't. Knowing technology,
right,
I printed some.
I have the questions here too, and I'll read them quickly and save your voices a little bit more than mine. So the first question, and as I said before, it was sent out to all the candidates. Candidate 1 is Alan, candidate 2 is Utah, candidate 3 is Gerard, and candidate number 4 here is Ben on the end. First question will be debated between number 1 and 2, Alan and Utah. And it has to do with business risk management programs for farmers. Current business risk management programs are not addressing Current business risk management programs are not addressing the risk management needs for the farm sector. They're not predictable or bankable. The federal government needs to lead, yes? Opening statements.
Oh, yeah.
Who wants to do opening statements? I do, yeah. Let's start with opening statements, Alan, please.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone. My name is Alan Thompson. I'm the Liberal Party of Canada candidate in Huron-Bruce. Can everyone hear me? I'm not sure the microphone is on.
Switch on. May have to hold it in.
There is a switch. Shall I start over? Good evening, everyone. Oh, now you can hear me. My name is Alan Thompson. I'm the Liberal Party candidate in the election. I was born and raised on a farm near Glamis. That's just about 20 minutes north of here. We had a farrow-to-finish operation, pigs and feeder cattle. But I'm not going to attempt to out-farm a room full of farmers. I didn't make my profession in farming. I spent close to half my life on the farm, then went off to university. I studied journalism. I worked for 17 years with the Toronto Star, although I have to mention my first job in journalism was here in Teeswater. I worked for the Teeswater News and the Kincardine Independent newspaper. I then worked with the Toronto Star for 17 years, 10 years on Parliament Hill, and more recently I've been teaching journalism at Carleton University in Ottawa. Traveling around the riding, I've been very struck by, there's a slogan, the bumper sticker that you see, farmers feed cities. I like that slogan a lot, and having grown up on the farm and worked in cities, I sort of feel as if in a way I've kind of had a foot in both of those worlds. And I'm also very happy, this is our second debate on agriculture issues. So we will have spoken about agriculture more than the party leaders have done during this election. And just to tell you briefly about the Liberal Party's priorities for agriculture, for me and for the Liberal Party, I think stability for our farmers is key. That's the most important thing. Bankable, predictable support. That means protecting what we have, supply management, and also supporting other commodities. With agriculture, it's also vital that we invest in research that has been stripped away by the Conservative government. And in this riding, as I said, and as you know, farmers feed cities. We need a strong rural voice in Huron-Bruce. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Next we have Utah.
I was born and raised in Germany. Farming is what brought me to Huron-Bruce over 20 years ago. Lifelong learning, working on our farm, practical work, raising our 4 children, and also volunteering is what gave me the balance and also the experience in life. I've stood up on a number of things, and I will continue to ask questions, to investigate the root cause, and to find out what is best for all of us. Did you know that the Green Party is a national party? We have 335 candidates. We do take a stand on all major public issues. We have a record to be first on a number of things, which is having no votes, opposing Bill C-51, and also publishing our expenses online. The 4 major pillars of the Green Party is sustainable economy, good community, strong communities, good government, and also actual climate action. So Huron-Bruce has a bright future if our federal government makes a commitment and invests and shows real leadership and invests in people and in sustainable technology. Canadians can be healthy and productive with a guaranteed livable income, with a national farmer care, and free tuition, post-secondary tuition. I am declare my commitment to protect our #1 water resource and our farmland. I am the only candidate that opposes the nuclear waste burial and abandonment in the Great Lakes Basin. Remember, as your MP, I will have your interest first.
Thank you, Utah. Gerard?
Check. You have to just hold on the button.
All right, that didn't eat into my time. So my name is Gerard Crescent. I'm your NDP candidate in Huron-Bruce, and I grew up in Zurich, so I'm a town kid. But Summer's mom would, you knew something was up if she had 2 sandwiches and a jug of water waiting for you and told you to get on a pickup truck at 6 in the morning. But this election presents an opportunity to change directions after nearly 150 years of red and blue governments. This election is an opportunity for progress and for prosperity. And we need to contemporize politics as well. The next generation of voters feel they don't have a choice that reflects their views. And so do so many people this election. And I know, because I've been here all the way. Part of the reason I'm running is I don't want to see our hometowns fade away. I think we're stronger than that. But I've been following this all the way, writing stories, taking the photos, following up on our greatest tragedies and our greatest successes. Because I'm 34 years old. I've been working in local news for 10 years in communities across this region, and I have an intimate knowledge of how rural Ontario works because it's been the focus of my entire career. Now, I'm a first-generation Canadian on my father's side, or new stock if you go by Harper's definition, but my family came to Canada from Belgium 8 years after the Second World War because my grandfather didn't want his sons forced into what he had to go through as a soldier. Canada accepted them and us with open arms. But Canada's arms are closing, and so is its mind. People are afraid now, afraid for the unknown, afraid for their jobs, afraid for their families. And now, the Reds and Blues want you to be afraid of us. Conservatives will tell you Canada can't afford the NDP, and meanwhile, under Harper, they have created 1/4 of Canada's total debt since Confederation. The Liberals will tell you an NDP vote is a risky or a wasted vote. Meanwhile, they have been through 5 leaders in 5 elections. I admire Tom Mulcair. He's a man of principle, he's a family man, he's fought to keep Canada together, to protect our civil liberties, and create harmony between environment and industry.
Thank you, Gerard.
Thank you.
On to you, Ben.
Test 1, 2. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be here tonight. Thank you to the Federation for hosting the meeting. Family farms are the backbone of our country. For generations, our farmers have fed Canadians and the world, while providing jobs and opportunity across Canada. Trade is vital to Canada's continued economic prosperity, and we have pursued new markets for Canadian farmers, expanding the number of countries Canada has free trade agreements with from 5 to over 50. This includes landmark free trade agreements negotiated with the European Union, South Korea, and today's announcement with the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Farmers in Huron-Bruce stand to benefit significantly from the Canada-Korea Free Trade Agreement, as it will reduce or eliminate tariffs on virtually all agricultural products grown in Huron-Bruce. Canadian pork from a current tariff rate of 30%, Canadian beef from a tariff rate of 40 to 72%, food-grade soybeans at a tariff of almost 500%, and zucchini beans from a current tariff rate of almost 600%. Our Prime Minister has defended supply management in the Trans-Pacific Partnership, and we will see the benefits for all sectors in years to come. Health Canada, through the Pest Management Regulatory Agency, is taking a scientific approach to issues surrounding neonicotinoids by actively working with key stakeholders, as well as provincial agriculture and environment ministers. We've made continuous improvements to the Advanced Payment Program to stimulate investment and innovation in Canada's agriculture sector, as well as streamline administration, provide greater flexibility, and more repayment options. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. And thank you, candidates, for your opening statements. Our first question will be debated between candidates 1 and 2, Alan and Utah. And I will read the question quickly. And I think there's some copies going around the audience there. We're going to try this overhead at some point again. Business risk management programs for farmers. Current business risk management programs are not addressing the risk management needs for the farm sector. They are not predictable or bankable. Federal government needs to lead improvement in the responsiveness and effectiveness of the existing BRM programs, such as AgriInvest and AgriStability, and partner with provincial governments to support initiatives such as the Ontario Risk Management Program. The federal government needs to consult with farmers to get a better understanding of the risk management programming needs of Canadian farm operations, including concerns with climate change impacts. These need to be reflected in Growing Forward 3 programs. As agricultural operations continue to diversify and deal with increased financial risk, the present BRM, Business Risk Management structure, is not providing the needs of agriculture. What is your party's strategy on the Ontario BRM programs? Alan?
I think agriculture, as in other sectors, it's a place where there is a role for government. And this is not just about finding markets outside of Canada. That's very important for our agriculture, but it's not just about finding markets. Markets are still volatile by nature. And I think farmers need to be able to count on their government to help them when they're in need. Liberals believe that farmers facing financial hardship through no fault of their own should be given bankable, predictable support to avoid financial catastrophe. And that's what the security of our food system relies upon. Food security for Canadians requires a strong and viable agriculture sector. And successful BRM programs, when designed by farmers for farmers, are the way to go. And we also need federal, provincial cooperation and collaboration. And Ontario's risk management program, the RMP, was meant to be a three-way partnership, but it's not at this point. The Harper Conservatives refused to participate in the Ontario program. And I think it's a valid question, why not? Why not participate? The deep cuts to agri-stability, hundreds of millions in 2013, leave farmers waiting too long for too little support. And personally, I think the federal government should look at supporting and participating in Ontario's risk management program.
Thank you. You see it, it's Bronte.
From experience, I find agri-stability, like the risk management has different, different levels. There's production insurance, and I think most farmers use it now on the crop side. But agri-stability is dysfunctional program, it's ineffective, and it was often even when there was federal government support, a lot of money and administration lost, and it was like you never knew. It was unpredictable. Our accountant couldn't even explain it to us. So in the 25th century, I think we need to reinvent the way how we work together as a federation. It is important to work on all levels of government together in the Canadian Council to address shared challenges and ensure more effective collaboration. And between the federal, provincial, the municipal, and also First Nation, Métis, and Inuit. So the Council of Canadian will catalyze a new era of cooperation. And I recognize that the farm organizations should be take part in the development of more efficient business risk management. National agriculture and food policy must be redesigned to keep family farms economically viable. Reliable domestic food supplies is essential. So reduce the corporate control to food supply by ensuring that farm support payments are farm-based, not production-based, to encourage more farms and more farmers. The biggest business risk is actually climate change, and also being in the dark about trade agreements. We learned today that for the offering, the Canadian government offers a $4.3 billion income support to dairy farmers and chicken poultry sector to offset their losses. So I think that is important for us to know what the trade agreements look like. So assisting farmers in climate change adaptation is encouraging farming method that increase carbon sequestration and decrease water requirement, establishing greenhouse gas emission targets for all components of the agri-food sector, and restructuring Canadian risk management by by assisting farmers to cope with climate risk. The Green Party supports a fair trade agreement that keeps our domestic markets stable and our country sovereign.
All right, then Jared and then Ben, they each have a minute and a half to address the same issue.
Well, when it comes to a risk management program, I guess the ADP's approach is really listen and actually work with producers to try and come together with something that is fair for all farmers and not just individual pockets or individual sectors. But risk is, I guess it's not just limited to crop failures or dollars and cents. One of the biggest risks that we do have is succession planning and who's going to take over the farms next. There's a lot of young people that can't get into farming. There's a lot of young people that they see that insurmountable wall of debt that they have to take on even to be able to get into the business, and it's too intimidating. And so small farms are disappearing, medium farms are turning into large farms, and in a county like Bruce where there are so many very small operations, 20, 30 head operations, these are the types of things that we really have to take a look at protecting. Because as I said, risk, it's not just about insurance, it's about who's going to continue this forward, who's going to perpetuate our agricultural way of life. And so we really want to focus on mentorship, training young farmers, trying to get them into the business. We do have some high schools that are doing this already with some high skills major programs, but we really need to expand upon that and make sure that we have a new generation of farmers to be able to even keep the livelihood alive in these counties, let alone be able to make a claim.
Thank you, Jared. Ben, you have a minute and a half.
Thanks very much. Our government's taking tremendous leadership in both business risk management programs and non-business risk management programs. The most important thing, though, when we talk about these programs is profitability. For 13 years, when the previous Liberal government was in, there was no profitability in agriculture. The last 10 years, like I've said in past debates, were the best 10 years that agriculture has had in this country. And when there's profit in agriculture, you don't need business risk management programs. Agri-Invest is one very effective tool that we did bring in for business risk management that allows up to 1% of allowable net sales. Agri-Stability also works. I know farmers who have the ability to trigger that if possible. The key point is, though, if you go back to a couple years ago when they were doing the rounds of negotiations, the provincial Liberal minister in this province, McMeekin at the time, he wanted to go to 50% for the margins. We fought hard to make sure that it didn't go to that level to protect farmers' interests. When you look at the advanced payment program, there's another great tool that I could go on for 10 minutes, but I know I only have a minute and a half. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. That concludes the first question. The second two questions, and I'm going to ask that we actually involve both of them. They both have to do with rural infrastructure. One does touch on, the very first one, the second question, I guess, touches on the Energy East and mainline gas projects. Rural Ontario needs access to natural gas as an efficient energy source to improve competitiveness and to develop a more viable and sustainable agri-food industry. I'm going to ask both these questions. They both have to do with rural, 2 and 3 at the same time, and feel free to debate both of them. They are rural, and it's going to be between Gerard and Ben. I'm just trying to keep y'all on your toes and nobody falls asleep. Proposed Energy East and Eastern Mainline gas projects will potentially restrict gas supply to Ontario by 50%, resulting in insufficient supply to allow for expansion of gas supply to rural Ontario. What's your party's strategy to address this concern? And also, with regards to rural infrastructure, particularly roads and bridges, as well as natural gas, all infrastructure, in rural Ontario continue to deteriorate rapidly. What is your party's plan for infrastructure transfer to rural Ontario to improve rural bridges and roads? You have a combined 5 minutes to discuss this, and then the other two candidates will follow up with a minute and a half each. Gerard, you're first.
Okay, so I guess the first part of it is dealing with how to protect, I guess, our expansion of gas supply in Ontario, and as opposed to pipelines. I mean, the NDP as a party, we very much support the idea of processing Canadian resources at home. And that is something that we really need to stress here. You know, we're talking about reducing our carbon footprint, and the best way to do that is to be not shipping wholesale resources across the border for processing, shipping back products to Canada. We strongly believe adding value at home and creating tens of thousands of jobs at home. Now, as far as protecting, allowing for expansion of gas supply in Ontario, what we want to do, and the best way to protect this, is actually have environmental assessment laws that have teeth, that actually have consequences when people try to bypass them. And sadly, I guess in 2012, when the Navigable Waters Act passed, that all went out the window. All of it. It turned from about 2.5 million protected bodies of water in this country to fewer than 200. And all for the sake of a quick buck. Now, we can see that playing out in this scenario perfectly. You know, we want to protect our water. We want to protect our gas supply. And the way to do that, make environmental regulations that actually have teeth, that people actually have to adhere to and work around. So we're not just steamrolling over our resources, steamrolling over our water, cutting out our opportunities at the knees because we just want to make a quick buck. We want to get rid of these things as fast as we can, cash in, and what are we left with? You know, we're left with far more damage that will be far more expensive to undo in the long run. Now, for infrastructure, and being a municipal reporter, I've seen this play out time and time again. The infrastructure deficits are huge, they are crippling for municipalities, and now that the province is really leaning on people to have their plans in order, plans for things that, you know, maybe 10, 20 years down the road, it's really taxing on them in resources as well. And so the NDP's approach, we want to actually add another cent of the gas tax, be able to give that to municipalities so they do have more money in the bank to be able to do those projects, roads, bridges, critical infrastructure. I drove through a few of them on my way here tonight. Now, I guess the best way to do that, as I said, increased funding, and also we want to make sure that that funding goes directly to communities. Because again, and I've witnessed this time and again, just through municipal reporting, and I'm sorry, I realize I'm taking a long time. We got to end this competing, you know. Municipalities shouldn't be competing against each other for a set pool of money. We should be doing this on a needs basis.
Okay, thanks very much. A couple of points we need to be very clear on. There's really two forms of funding for municipalities. One is the gas tax. That's about almost $7 million per year that goes into Huron-Bruce. In the municipality of South Bruce, for example, it was a little under $80,000 just a few short years ago. It's been tripled to over $180,000 now. That's bankable each and every year, indexed to inflation by law. The same with Bruce County, $800,000. Now it's close to $2 million each and every year. That's bankable. While the federal government, under the leadership of Stephen Harper, has increased funding, the province has taken it away. And if you ask any municipal councillor in this county, they'll go ad nauseum and give you the descriptions and how painful that's been. And that's why we've seen the large tax increases in some of our municipalities, is because that money's been pulled out. Now, on the other hand, there's infrastructure funding for projects. Under the previous Liberal government, there was virtually no money for infrastructure. Our government has provided billions of dollars from coast to coast. Just in this riding alone, it's close to $100 million since 2008. That's helped with projects all over the riding, a number of projects in South Bruce. One example would be the sewer system here in Teeswater. So that's a few items of what we've done. We've taken leadership. And so you have two tracks, bankable on one hand through the gas tax. The other program, the Building Canada Fund, is on special projects that we've seen throughout our communities.
Thank you, Ben. Alan, you each have a minute and a half, so go ahead.
Canada faces $123 billion infrastructure deficit, and the massive municipal, so this is according to the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, The Harper conservative policies fall short of adequate addressing the massive financing and funding challenges. Nearly 90% of the conservative multi-billion-dollar infrastructure funds remain unspent. So how does this infrastructure deficit, how can we eliminate it? The Green Party supports a transfer, to increase transfer payment from 1 point of GST revenues to local governments for transit expansion and repairs and other improvements. We also believe that additional financing is very important for improving. So this could be done by having an infrastructure bank that funds are available at the lowest cost possible and offering private investors opportunities to profitable long-term investments. So I had to start on that first just because it was perfect just to speak in response to Mr. Laub. But on the Energy East project, I can assure you that the Green Party takes a stand of not using...
Thank you, Yuta.
Yeah. We
Thank
are
you.
against it, there's no conflict.
Thank you. Alan?
On the specific question of Energy East, a Liberal government will approve the Energy East pipeline project only if environmental, community, and stakeholder concerns have been properly addressed. And in this case, the stakeholder concern that's been identified is gas supply to rural Ontario. So this is one of the things that would have to be taken into consideration. We'd have to answer that question before approval of Energy East. On rural infrastructure, the broader question, I don't want to read off long lists of numbers, but there is one number that I want to share with you. A Liberal government has proposed $125 billion in infrastructure investment. That is double, 2 times what the Conservative government is currently spending and proposing. And this is a massive investment, and it is what our communities need at this time. I think those of us who were around in 1967 remember the excitement of Centennial Year, all of the building, all of the projects, the way we enriched our communities, celebrating the 100th anniversary of Canada. I think for 2017, for the 150th anniversary of Canada, we should be making a similar investment. That is roads and bridges and ports and transportation corridors. But infrastructure is also social infrastructure, seniors housing, childcare, community centers, cultural centers. This is a massive investment in our rural
Thank you, Alan. I should also note, thank you, candidates, so far. We are sharing mics, and sharing time is obviously going to be difficult, so we'll work our best with that. Question 4, or well, 3, I guess, it will be the 4th question we have handed out, will be debated between Alan and Ben. And it goes as such. Agriculture and agri-food research. Canada needs a plan to revive agriculture and agri-food research. This entails funding and resourcing targeted initiatives to provide for changes in crops nutrition practices to adapt to climate change and targeted efforts to produce for emerging domestic and international high-value markets. Canada has long been a world leader in agriculture research. However, certain federal cuts to research and to agriculture and agri-food Canada's internal capacity, coupled with policy changes, have resulted in new challenges for Canadian agriculture researchers and for all stakeholders in agriculture. What is your party's plan to correct this problem? Ben, would you like to begin?
Okay. Right off the bat, I would disagree with the premise or the assumption there that there have been cuts or that the cuts have been detrimental to agriculture. First and foremost, if you take a look at agri-flexibility, agri-innovation, that's $1 billion in research and innovation in agriculture in the last 9 years. That's a huge investment. Take a look at C-18, the bill that was recently passed. That's the Agricultural Growth Act. That deals with UPOV 91. The grain farmers, just for example, the grain farmers in Ontario were really supportive of us passing that bill. That's going to give seed companies around the world the confidence to make investments in this country. UPOB 91 was preventing that in the past. That's going to be a huge opportunity for us to move forward. We need to also take a look at the yields that we're seeing up and down our farm roads. We're seeing yields that we've never seen before. That's innovation. That's technology. Take a look at the innovation that we're seeing with our farm machinery and our farm equipment. 10 years ago, we couldn't have dreamed of what we're doing today. That's innovation. It doesn't all have to be government research and development. When private makes investments, that's good for agriculture as well. We've done great projects even here locally, three-way partnerships with the federal government, a growers group, and a university. We also take a look at just one example in the dairy sector with the barn that was built not too far away from here. There was $3 million in federal money invested in that. We've done a tremendous amount. The proof is up and down the fields. They're in the yields that we see. There's profit in agriculture where there wasn't profit before. That allows farmers to reinvest. Take a look at the amount of reinvestment that's taken place in this riding. New sheds, new barns, new farm machinery. That's what agriculture is doing here. We don't need to be negative about it. It's a very positive thing, and we'll continue to do so. One other example I can give you on innovation. 10 years ago, there was no robotic milking stations in Huron-Bruce. Now take a look up and down the country roads at all the dairy farm operations that have robotic milkers. Look at the technology that goes into that. Look at the innovation and freedom that it's given dairy farmers to grow and expand their business. So there's a tremendous amount of innovation in here, in this riding and around the country, and there's been over $1 billion in investment.
Alan, an equal amount of time to respond.
Okay, well, I do agree with the premise of the question that agriculture research, like science and evidence-based policymaking across the board, has suffered under the Harper Conservatives. I think there is an international consensus that science and basing policy on evidence is not the preferred practice of the Harper Conservative government. And Canada and this government have been pilloried for that. And agriculture, as with other sectors, is one of the areas where we have to return, we have to reinvest, we have to encourage research, but we also have to pay for it. And so to say that government does not have a central role in research and development, I think is basically abandoning one of the key roles for government. We need to dramatically reinvest in research and in science in this country, and agriculture is one of the most important places to start.
Okay, thank you. And so Jutta and Gerard will have an opportunity for a minute and a half each.
Science is evidence and transparency together, they form the backbone of informed decision making and good policies. So Canadian scientists, both inside and outside the government, must have the freedom to pursue important discoveries without looking over their shoulder if their work is industry relevant or if somebody is cutting their funding. Funding for basic research and science in Canada is an all-time low, and we will begin to rebuild the public science capacity lost during the last decade. So we will provide $75 million annually and add critical science capacity. Elizabeth May's bill, which died on order of paper due to the August 2 writ, will be re-entered to mandate that all public funded science must be published. So the problem with public and private partnership is that sometimes we have no access to the research. We want to prevent patenting of life forms and ensure that new plant cultivars and animal breeds remain in the public domain. So we need to increase publicly funded research also into organic farming techniques, and to make sure that all the research is in the interest of the consumers and the family farmers.
Thank you. Gerard?
Well, I guess, as you heard from the other candidates, the role of science and everything cannot be overstated. And I guess one thing that is missing here is the government actually taking the lead, from the agricultural community. Takes me back to Homesville last week. I was talking about, I guess the science is involved in, the NDP wanting to reduce pesticide use, increase crop rotation. These are things that farmers have proven because they're the ones that are out there doing this all the time. And so it's really, again, and I'm probably going to say this a few times tonight, but a listening ear, paying attention to what's going on the ground and reinforcing that both with the political willpower and the funding to actually make sure this happens. Now, as far as the destruction of science in this country, I mean, that's a point that can't really be argued. We've all seen images of books, dumpsters just full of books, as the government's been closing down research laboratories. Scientists getting arrested because they have to break in to steal their life's work back from a dumpster. That's not the type of attitude that is going to make us very much progress in this country. It's exactly that type of attitude that we have to stem, both in the agricultural sector and further beyond when you get into the other environmental sciences, and of course, preventing climate change.
Thank you, Gerard. Moving on to our final preset question. This will be between Gerard and Utah, beginning with Gerard. Has to do with water quality. Water is an essential element for agriculture and food production. Ensuring food security and a productive, thriving agriculture economy is paramount for the long-term health of Canada itself. The Bruce County Federation of Agriculture understands the importance of healthy Great Lakes. What is your party's policy regarding agriculture's involvement in maintaining a healthy Great Lakes environment? And we'll begin with Gerard.
Well, the NDP is really taking a lead role here with water. I mean, we want to start making sure that we don't treat water as a commodity, we treat it as a resource. That's why we want to put teeth back into our environmental regulations, because Lake Huron may be federally protected, but everything that flows into it is not. And that is where we need to get federal leadership back up and off the ground. Now, the NDP has committed to this. We've committed to restoring teeth to the Environmental Assessment Act, to the Navigable Waters Protection Act, put the word protection back in there, make sure we do have protection in it, and actually take that first step in recognizing that everybody has the right to clean water. And the agricultural community has been doing a lot of great work already. And, you take a look up near Port Albert where they're doing the berms. You take a look down by Ilderton where they're doing, weeping bed drains. There's so much that is already going on that the agricultural community is showing tremendous leadership on. And again, it is just a matter of the federal government catching on, looking at it, realizing they're already onto something. They're already doing the heavy lifting on the ground, and they just need the support from the federal government to be there. And as I said, we're committed. We want to make clean water a right. We want to make it accessible to all Canadians, because right now we have third world conditions in the north of this country. We have boil water advisories on hundreds of First Nations reserves, and we have no federal leadership to address that problem. And as I said, the NDP is fighting to make sure that clean, safe, potable water is a human right.
You to response.
Sustainable economies and communities and sustainable livelihood needs watersheds, healthy watersheds. The Green Party is committed to responsible water stewardship. And when it comes to our vision to fresh water, it is clear. It's a clear message. Keep it, conserve it, protect it. So we certainly do not agree to bulk water sales, and that are just like we can expect through NAFTA agreements. So the federal government needs to ensure the watershed protection is the first priority of water protection and establish in-stream flow needs on every first and second order stream in Canada. We need ecological function of river basins and must be protected through strict land use management. Those we know that from experience. when we didn't have land use management, and so we need municipalities that, they established the conservation authorities, but we really need to have a partnership between farmers and the conservation authorities going forward to make better decisions. It's not them against us. So the Green Party will establish a Canada Water Fund of $215 million per year over the next 5 years to focus on long-term watershed health, alleviating the problem of runoff of pollutants and nutrients, and to fund the continuation of the Great Lakes water quality protocol. Working with provinces to ensure that all livestock waste is properly recycled, safely, contamination by agricultural runoff is avoided. We need to have also proper funding for local and regional flood protection and drought management planning. We want to introduce a cost share program to help farmers protect wildlife habitat areas on marginal land, and maintain water quality in streams, lakes, and aquifers to retain improved soil quality. We're creating a national environmental farm plan program because we saw in the last 20 years here in Ontario how it works. So we need to provide new funding sources for implementing that at the farm level.
Thank you, Jutta. Minute and a half each. We'll begin with Alan.
I think our farmers are really now environmental leaders, and I don't think they get enough credit for that. Farming techniques have changed dramatically. Our farmers are very sophisticated stewards of the land and our environment and our fresh water. And I think they deserve enormous credit for that, and I'm not sure that urban media have totally caught on to how progressive our farmers are when it comes to our environment. The federal government needs to work with others. It needs to work with provinces, with territories, every willing partner to try and better address water and soil conservation. We need to invest in that type of infrastructure. And when I was talking earlier, a moment ago, about investments in rural infrastructure, this is one of them. We need to look for ways to invest in innovation and green infrastructure that's going to help protect our fresh water. I got the flag, so I'm done.
Thank you, Alan. Okay, Ben.
Thanks very much for the question. Key importance, we're fortunate that we have beautiful, pristine lakes here and that they're clean. To give you a couple of examples of the strategic investments we've made here locally, there's been over $700,000 invested in the Asaba Bayfield Conservation Authority and the floodshed, the watersheds and tributaries that they take care of. Those are the type of investments that help the quality of water in our Great Lakes. In addition to that, another example would be the Pine River Watershed Initiative. There's been hundreds of thousands of dollars invested along those tributaries to slow the water down and to put a better quality water back into our lakes. In addition to that, we've been long proponents and supporters of the Environmental Farm Plan. That's done great work up and down our country roads and has served to protect our water systems. So there's tremendous opportunities there. In addition, in the water, you can say we've made an investment of close to $20 million to protect the Great Lakes from the Asian carp. We've done a lot of great work, and we'll continue to do so. Agri-innovation is $700 million for that very thing.
Thank you, Ben, and thank you, candidates, for the answering and going through and debating the first several prepared questions. Now for the second portion of the evening, we're moving right along. Of course, these questions will have come from the floor. You've been numbered, so we'll begin with Alan with the first question, and all of you will have a chance, 2 minutes to respond to each question. The next question will begin with Jutta, and then the next one with Gerard, and we'll carry on in that manner. And again, thank you so far for the civility of this evening. First question from the floor. Can you please identify one thing you'd like to see Canada start doing and one thing you would like to see Canada stop doing to make Canada a better home for all? And if at any point you want me to repeat the question, just say so. I'm sure Les will stop the clock for a minute, but we'll try to move right along. So Alan, we'll begin with you. You have 2 minutes.
Well, I think something Canada could start doing is to open up our democracy again. And I think this matters as much to farmers as it does to anybody else. Our democratic institutions in Canada have been eroded, and we know about corrosion on the farm. Our institutions have been damaged by close to a decade of the Stephen Harper government. I think we need to open up government. We need to allow ministers and members of parliament to speak up and be heard. I think we need to return to a system of openness, access to information. We need our parliamentary committees to work. We need to fix what's broken in Canada, and I think our democracy, after 10 years of the Harper government, is at risk, and it's a very serious time, and this is an election where we need to do something differently. That's what Canada needs to start doing. I think what we need to stop doing is trying to take advantage of people's fears. Fear is a very, very strong emotion, and it's a natural one. It's easy to frighten people if that's what you want to do. I think our political leadership has a responsibility in a society like Canada to do better. They should know better. They should not be using fear to try and win votes. I think we have a responsibility to put forward a positive, constructive agenda for what we would do in Canada. And unfortunately, you turn on the television, I think we see fear every day in this election campaign being used to motivate people. I think it's wrong. I think we deserve much, much better as Canadians.
Thank you. We could withhold our applause. You did that. Please begin.
We need to start with real climate action. We are one of the highest carbon emitters in the world, and we need to get rid of, need to be one of the most efficient users of our resources. So we need to start with a good target that is achievable. We're behind we have a government that really makes us not good negotiators of, we have no real targets. So starting to set good targets and going to Paris with a strong team that will be a climate action leaders. I think that's what my wish is for Canada, and that's why I'm here as a candidate, because carbon fee and dividend is something that will get us there, and cap and trade. When you look at Mark Carney and others, they recognize that we need to tax carbon, and we need to stop subsidies on fossil fuels. If we don't do that, there's very little hope for future generations. So I think that's really clear, and I can expand on it. I encourage everybody to look at the concept of carbon fee and dividend. It's doable.
Thank you, Yunta. Gerard?
Okay. Well, I guess one thing I would like Canada to start doing is looking at the causes of poverty and inequality. That's a big reason why I'm sitting at this table today. And in rural Ontario, that is all the more prominent because I mean, in this riding, it's all the more prominent. As I said, small farms are disappearing. We've seen our manufacturing pack up and leave because it's cheaper to do business elsewhere, and because we have a government that encourages that climate and is still encouraging that climate with the passage of the TPP. And so we can take a look at the root causes of poverty in this, and how the system is designed to keep people down. So for instance, it costs us a rough estimate, $86 billion annual poverty in Canada. Now, a lot of these people cannot collect unemployment because the EI system is designed to keep them out. They're the ones that aren't making enough wages, they're the ones that aren't getting enough hours to actually be able to collect from a system that should be there to protect them when they do lose their very precarious, very low-paying work. And that's the new reality here. And that's why we're not getting people coming back from college, from university, to start here again. Because the jobs that we have are few, they are low-paying, they have no benefits, and if we can't offer people something to come home to, it's going to get tougher and tougher to attract them back. That's one thing that we need to address. Now, one thing I think that Canada can stop doing, and I just got the 30-second flag, so I'll make this quick. Canada can stop thinking that red and blue are the only political options.
Thank you, Gerard. Ben?
Thanks. Instead of start doing, I think what we should do is continue doing, and that's growing our economy and adding jobs to our economy. Since 2009, we've added 1.3 million jobs to the Canadian economy. The Prime Minister Stephen Harper, with his leadership, said we'll add another 1.3 million jobs to the Canadian economy. That's true leadership, all the while being able to protect the environment with greenhouse gas emissions actually being reduced. So that's a huge success story. What we need to stop doing is having leaders like Justin Trudeau and Kathleen Wynne doing everything in their power to kill the economy. I can rhyme off the list here. Of all the different things that Justin Trudeau has planned to do to kill jobs in this province. A payroll tax that will be $1,000 for every $60,000 of income. There's 200 businesses in this province that have signed a letter asking them not to do that. They're going to take away income splitting for families. They're going to take away $160 per month from universal child care benefit for every child. They're going to reduce the tax-free savings account from $10,000 a year to $5,000 a year. They're going to put a price on carbon. They're going to increase EI premiums. And when John McCallum gave the Liberal platform, the Liberal costing or whatever it was, when they tried to address the $6.5 billion gap in their proposal, their comment was, everything's on the table. Everything's on the table. So ladies and gentlemen, we drive up and down the roads, think of everything that's on the table. We don't know because they won't put it in there. But one thing we need to be clear on. When they say price on carbon, that's you pay, the user pays. That's the bottom line. So everything becomes more expensive. Your fuel, your grocery, your heating bills. That's the vision Justin Trudeau and Kathleen Wynne have for this province. We've seen it for over a decade in Ontario, and God help us if Justin Trudeau gets in.
Thank you, Ben. Okay, we have a question here. We're going to begin with you this time. And the question is this, and it's regarding some more recent activities across Canada. What is your response regarding the federal government's announcement today about the TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement? Fairly broad, but I think we can manage 2 minutes for this one. We might get some similar ones a little bit later, but I'll begin with you, Yuda. Thank you. 2 minutes.
Well, it's a bad deal. It makes me sad when for weeks we hear that supply management is not on the table. And then I find out, like our leader Elizabeth May, she made an announcement, and you can follow on greenparty.ca. She is really up on her issue. So she says that it's unacceptable that the Canadian government is offering $4.3 billion in income support and other transitional programs for producers in the dairy and poultry sector. What they had promised producers was that they would defend supply management. Instead, they seem to think they can buy off producers with income support for the next few years. So ladies and gentlemen, that's our money. This is taxpayers' money. And it is one of these deals that the Green Party will definitely work to collaboratively within the next minority government to introduce legislation to protect any types of investor-state agreements that put foreign profits over the best interests of Canadians. So this is exactly where free trade becomes an unfair trade, and we don't see the benefits, and we deserve to be informed. A government that does not show us, we don't know when we see the fine print, can't be trusted.
Thank you. Gerard?
Well, first off, it's garbage that a trade deal of this magnitude would be passed during an election period, okay? What happened to Caretaker Act? What happened to not doing this sort of thing, handcuffing the next government into an agreement that really nobody knows much about? Details have been scarce, and they've been leaked little bit by little bit. Supply management, as you just said, they said they would not touch it, and instead they just nicked away the corners at it, and then offered money because even that's going to run out. 10 years of funding, when you nick away the corners, it's going to get easier to round those off, and you can bet that's going to happen. We also have a Prime Minister that said the auto industry is not going to like this, lowering the components for Canadian manufactured auto parts by 25%. That could mean 20,000 jobs. That's a quarter of auto manufacturing jobs. And when you think about this, and that was 2 weeks ago, and this week, Prime Minister Stephen Harper was on the radio saying this is great for our auto manufacturing sector. So we're being sold a bill of goods in a terrible, terrible agreement that doesn't protect Canadian manufacturing jobs, that doesn't obviously protect Canadian supply management, because everything is being chipped away, and then we're being told that there's been nothing better for Canada than this free trade agreement. And as we've seen with trade agreements in the past, we're not actually on equal footing with our foreign investors, with our foreign markets. It drives down Canadian wages, it drives down Canadian labor. We have seen this happening. We are living the aftermath here in Huron-Bruce.
Thank you, Gerard. Ben?
If you'd like details on the trade deal, look at the International Trade website, Government of Canada. The details are there. Let me read you what Dairy Farmers of Canada put out today. No negative impact and supply management preserved for the next generation. Canadian Pork Council likes what it sees in TPP agreement. Virtually every single commodity group in this country endorses the deal. The deal is the single best deal since NAFTA. It's 800 million people that we have tariff-free or tariff-reduced access. This is transformational, ladies and gentlemen, coupled with the CETA agreement with Europe. That's 1.3 billion people that will have access. We're the only G7 country that has access like this, and it's under the leadership of Prime Minister Stephen Harper. Now, to Gerard's point, this agreement is not ratified. It will need to be ratified in the House of Commons, whichever government is formed on October 19th, and debated in the House of Commons, just like any other deal will be, as will all the other member countries. It will be ratified in all their collective houses. And so there will be a great amount of debate, a great amount of discussion. But to try and insinuate, like you did, that this is a bad deal for agriculture, I haven't heard any negative comments from any commodity groups. They're all supportive because we're already trading with these countries. What we're doing is decreasing the tariffs that allows our products to be more competitive and allow our producers, each and every producer up and down these rural roads, to compete on the world marketplace with European growers, American growers, the world around. This is a great deal for Canada.
Please look over your slides, please. Alan?
Yeah, well, the Liberal Party supports free trade. Canada is a trading nation. We need trading agreements like the TPP. But at this point, I disagree with Ben. I still don't think we know enough about the contents of this deal. There's been a real concern around the way it's been negotiated, around the secrecy, the lack of information. And when you talk about other trade agreements that have been signed, you mentioned CETA, the European agreement, they're still not ratified, they're still not enforced, they're still not implemented. There's a long, long road ahead to know what the TPP means for Canada. I think Gerard and the NDP will talk about rejecting it, throwing it out. I think that's a tough sell with the farmers who are going to benefit from those export markets. But I think we also need to look very long and hard at what our government has negotiated on our behalf in very secret talks. Mr. Harper likes to talk a lot about veils these days. I think the veil that we should be most concerned about is the veil of secrecy around negotiations like the TPP.
Thank you, Alan. Let's give a round of applause, please. Thank you for your response to that question. I should mention the floor, there is room for more questions. If you have any more that you want to send to the back, we are trying to keep this agriculture related as possible. And I do recognize that we are in a rural area, so real questions will be accepted. So with that said, Gerard's going to begin the response to this question here. And I know we touched on carbon tax or cap and trade program somewhere. Perhaps you're familiar with something that's proposed here in Ontario or not. And I would this is how the question's formed, and I would like perhaps an agricultural angle to your response if we could. How does that sound? The question is, what is your party's platform regarding either a carbon tax or a cap and trade program? And we'll begin, and like I said, try to keep it to agriculture if we could. Gerard, we'll begin with you.
Okay, well, the cap and trade program, I mean, it's really just about making polluters pay. And that is where we need to go with Canada, because we have just unrestricted access right now. We have so much that we need to actually clamp down on here. And it's not about, they're gonna say, oh, it's gonna make you pay more in your pocket. But we gotta have more faith in Canadian industries and Canadian manufacturers and businesses here. And we have to have teeth to make sure that they're not passing it down so it is in your pocket. Like a cap and trade, okay. I mean, are we all familiar with this? I create so many tons of CO2 or CO, Ben creates more. I buy his credits, or he buys my credits. That's the program that we're talking about, making sure that we have a cap on carbon. Now, with that, if you are a bigger polluter, you do pay because you're getting that credit from somebody else. If you're not, then it's okay. You have some wiggle room, you can sell your credits, obviously. But what we want to do is make sure that we do have a real ceiling on this. And that's why when we go to Paris this year, Tom Mulcair will make sure that the NDP commits Canada to real targets, to real achievable targets, things that are ambitious that we can actually strive for, to reduce pollution in this country, and for those who do happen to produce maybe a little more, we do have a cap and trade program so that we can responsibly still keep a ceiling on emissions in this country, but also allow our manufacturers and our industries to have that wiggle room. Now, it's just about being responsible, about setting a goal, about sticking to it, and making sure that everything is clean and above board.
Thank you, Gerard. Ben, 2 minutes.
Okay, thanks very much. Our Prime Minister has taken strong leadership on this. And like I mentioned earlier, we've seen greenhouse gas reductions, which is significant. The previous Liberal government saw their emissions go up 30%. So we can see what true leadership does on the environmental front. The Prime Minister was also clear that if we're going to have a deal, in Paris, that the big emitters need to come to the table. Canada only represents 2% of the emitters. We need the big emitters, China, we need the bigger emitters like the United States to come to the table. He's been able to do that, so we look forward to that. We've done a sector-by-sector regulatory approach, which has worked. And I'll give you an idea, just to run down the list here, of what we've been able to align with the United States, in addition to fuel efficiency standards with our vehicles. But what we've been able to align is passenger vehicle light trucks, heavy trucks, renewable fuels, hydrofluorocarbons, engine emissions like I mentioned sulfur in gasoline, sulfur in diesel, halocarbons, certain limits, and methane in oil and gas sectors. So I rhymed off all the list. I could rhyme off a list as long as my arm of what we've been able to do. But again, doing it alone doesn't work. We have to work with the United States, they're big emitters, and we have to work with other countries around the world and make sure that they take leadership. Because like I mentioned, we're only 2% of the world's emissions. So we want to make sure that we have a balance between the economy and the environment, and we've done that. That's why we've had 1.3 million net new jobs. But I'd also like to emphasize, when you hear carbon tax or cap and trade, carbon tax is you pay. Cap and trade is consultants get rich.
Thank you, Ben. Alan, 2 minutes.
Ben, I don't think there is an environmental organization or expert on this planet who would regard Stephen Harper as a true leader on the environment. I don't think that person exists. I think we need real leadership on the environment from the Prime Minister on down. The Prime Minister, Stephen Harper, has begrudgingly acknowledged the role of climate change on this planet and in our communities. I think farmers know very well with the crazy weather that we are living through climate change. We all have to take responsibility. I think a national government needs to work together with the provinces, set national emission reduction targets. A Prime Minister needs to attend. People have been talking about Paris, major international conference on climate change. We have to be there. There should be a Canadian delegation that could include the premiers of our provinces. This is one of the major issues of our time. It has to be confronted by our leaders instead of having cabinet ministers sitting around the table who actually say they don't believe in climate change. We have to do better in this country.
Thank you, Alan. Yuda, 2 minutes.
So the high cost of administration for carbon cap and trade, I understand that, and that's why we basically say we're gonna tax what we don't want. So we set a fee per carbon that comes out of the ground at the source, and that goes into basically a fund that doesn't disappear in government coffers, and that's where the beauty comes in place, that it gets divided and every citizen will receive according to the amount of people, and if we get a dividend. And so it is proven that almost 2/3 of citizens will benefit from this dividend and will be able to pay for the higher cost. Like let's face it, if gasoline is 80 cents, yeah, we are not so concerned. If it's $1.50, maybe we're gonna do more conservation, and I think it will really trigger that we do develop research and invest in research and development. And like I mentioned maybe before, we have the first electric tractors. It's not science fiction, and transportation has a tremendous impact for farming. So we need to invest into rails as well. And so how do we get our product to market is very important for farming. So there is something where we can apply it.
Thank you, Yuda. And thank you, candidates. We'll move on to the next question. I know we've touched on some energy question at the start, but I think we'll expand on it here a little bit. Many major energy infrastructure projects are being proposed, and as we said earlier about the Energy East pipeline, but there's also some other ones such as nuclear energy, the DGR, green energy. How will your party make sure all concerns are addressed before any of these projects are initiated? I think it's a fair question in regards to agriculture, as you know, it's part of our environment here as well. So look forward to your response, and we'll begin with Ben. And I can repeat the question. 2 minutes.
I think the main focus and priority we have to have from a federal perspective is a strong environmental assessment regime, which we do. We've reformed that to make it more efficient and to get environmental assessments done quicker and on time so that developers, when they start a project to the finish, it isn't 2 decades. It used to be that a hydroelectric project would take 10 years. And that's not efficient if you're an investor. That's not efficient if you want to make clean energy. So we have to be able to streamline and make our environmental assessment regime robust. Give you another example with the low and intermediate DGR project. That project, the start to finish on it, the environmental assessment portion of it started right around the time I got elected. And so that's 7 years ago, and I know it predated my time. So it was certainly across Paul Steckley's desk probably in 2003 or 2004. That's a long, long time. The rigor that goes into these environmental assessments are very significant, and you can see it on display each and every day if it's on length in Kincardine. So an important step is the Environmental Assessment Act, and we have that, but we have to be progressive, and we have to continue to evolve, and as projects come up, we have to have an open mind, balance the economy, and balance the environment. One very significant project that will be coming up in this region in the next few years is the pipeline for natural gas for Kincardine and Ripley and Point Clark. That's a game changer for those communities, and we need to get behind those and make sure that we're supportive at the governmental level, because we have the ability in rural Ontario and in Huron-Bruce to really help out a lot of people's lives, but also really help kickstart businesses and bring some opportunities to those areas.
Thank you, Ben. Alan?
Well, obviously, energy infrastructure is critically important in this area. The federal government, Liberal government, would, as I've said, pour historic amounts of money into infrastructure, and this would be driven by local communities. These projects have to come forward from the community and meet local needs. The question also touched on nuclear energy and the DGR, the Deep Geological Repository, both very, very important subjects, and they're linked. In my case, when talking about nuclear energy and the DGR, 2 things are of utmost importance. The continued safety and security of our communities, and my support and the support of my party for nuclear power as a safe, clean source of energy, and as the economic backbone of our local community. I think the Liberal Party's support for nuclear energy has been crystal clear for decades. The party was actively involved in the development of the technology, the expansion of the technology, the sale of CANDU reactors abroad. The Conservative government talks about supporting nuclear energy, but did dismantle the AECL, the Atomic Energy of Canada Limited, and sold off CANDU technology for a bargain basement price. And the NDP, I think, has been a bit ambiguous about nuclear energy, but I'll let the candidate speak for himself.
Thank you, Alan. Yuda, you have 2 minutes.
Energy infrastructure projects have to be based on economics, and we have to look at new build price versus an all-in cost. So a national energy plan is needed. So what is for the dollars invested, what brings us the best results? And we have to have a long-term vision. So nobody would build a nuclear power plant if you would not give the loan guarantee and carry the insurance. So it is, by the way, up to First Nation to decide if they give permission for the nuclear waste facility. So I think that in regards to the natural gas project, I've looked at the reports. I see a lot of open questions. I look forward to the upcoming open houses next week and invite you to participate and bring your questions as well. We have to look at that natural gas. Yes, it's cheap right now, but it's very volatile. You don't get a guaranteed price, but you will get with solar and wind. And with the new RFP projects, the renewable energy is cost competitive, and if we don't want to get that route, we can also trade energy with other provinces in the neighborhood. So I think I am the only the candidate that speaks openly against investing in more nuclear, but I guess that's another first.
Thank you, Yuta. Gerard?
Well, when it comes to energy infrastructure, and I did touch on this earlier, the NDP's approach is environmental assessments that actually mean something. You know, making sure that environmental protection is first and foremost in these things, and that resource development is sustainable, and that it is as neutral as possible. And making sure, again, reducing carbon footprint, making sure that we can create these projects, making them thrive at home, and thereby creating Canadian jobs, reducing the carbon footprint, and again, making sure that we can deal with our resources at home. On the nuclear issue, the NDP's stance is not ambiguous. We would not be expanding our nuclear infrastructure, we would be increasing the safety and security of the infrastructure that we already have. And just a couple, I guess, quick rebuttals. I mean, with the Environmental Assessment Act, Ben, in fairness, it's not about investors. It's the Environmental Assessment Act. It's there to protect the environment first and foremost. And we have to remember that when we're doing this legislation. Yeah, you could have money tied up in this project, and is that really the smartest reason to rush it through the door as quickly as possible? No, I don't think so. And as far as ambiguity on our plan, Mr. Thompson, the Liberals' plan is we are very supportive of XYZ, something, something, Stephen Harper.
Thank you, Gerard. And thank you, panelists, so far. We're doing well. Another question from the floor, and this time it has to do with Canada Post. What are your party's plans for Canada Post and for door-to-door rural delivery? Do you have plans to privatize mail delivery? From the floor, and we'll begin back with Alan.
Sorry, I was still trying to figure out Gerard's last statement, but I'll get to that later. Canada Post. In rural areas particularly, I think we rely very much on delivery. And I think we have to look very, very carefully at changes that are made to Canada Post. A lot of changes have been made in the last decade or so to a major crown corporation. It has changed dramatically. It has cut back its door-to-door service very significantly. This happened in a lot of big urban centers and towns before it would happen in rural areas. The Liberal Party has said we should have a moratorium, a freeze, on any further cuts to door-to-door delivery by Canada Post until we can really, fully, properly assess the situation and how Canada Post functions and how it serves us and our needs. For me, personally, I think door-to-door delivery in a rural environment should be something that we absolutely move to protect. I think personally that is very vital in rural communities, and we should be very careful about going any further. But for now, I think we need a moratorium on further changes to Canada Post's delivery. And we also need to look at Canada Post as a business and be sure that we do make decisions that make sense for the taxpayer.
Thank you. Yuta, your response?
The Green Party does value Canada Post door-to-door delivery and will support it. We also suggest that we should explore how we can make Canada Post more successful and how we can maybe add something to the business.
Thank you. Gerard?
The NDP's stance is very clear. Reverse the cuts to Canada Post and reinstate door-to-door delivery. And just to clarify my earlier comment, I'm very sorry. The Liberal approach is promise to be all things to all people, but when you do that, you let everybody down.
If we can please stick to the question at hand, Ben.
Okay.
Well, actually, I agree with George there on his last point. So there's 6 debates, we finally agree on one thing. What I'll say about Canada Post, Alan's made some comments about how we need to maintain our rural delivery. He's wrong. To rural farm mailboxes, yes, we have to maintain that. But if you live in Teeswater, if you live in Clinton, if you live in Seaford, if you live in Exeter, where do you get your mail? At the post office, okay? If you live in a certain part of Kincardine, you get your mail delivered. If you live in the other parts of Kincardine, you get your mail from the super boxes. So it's not fair for all. So if we're talking about equity, it has to be all for one, or it has to be fairness for everybody. And what I'm saying is, what we're proposing to do is, first of all, we have to start with the position that Canada Post is out of date, they're losing money, they have a massive unfunded pension liability that they need to deal with. So they're dealt with that. Times have changed. People don't send as many letters as they used to. I think it's down 1 billion letters per year. Emails, Facebook, you name it, they're all changing. So times have changed. Canada Post has to change. They have to continue to modernize. But this whole notion about door-to-door delivery has been misplayed and misled, because out in rural communities like ours, yes, to the farmers, to their mailbox, yes, we're going to maintain that because that's important. But if you live in a small town, it's a mixed bag, and it should be fairness for all. The super boxes work great. People seem quite happy with them. Post offices seem to work great. So let's do that, and let's get Canada Post back on track, and so they're at least break even.
Thank you, Ben. Moving on to our next question. Farms and agriculture is a lot of business, for small business, and I think this next question is appropriate. What are your party's plans? We're going to start with Yuta. What are your party's plans for the retirement pension plan, and how do you plan to work with the provinces that wish to make some changes? We'll begin with Yuta. 2 minutes.
So we recognize that Canada Pension is a pension plan that works and it's predictable. We are planning to expand it, and as you asked for small business, a lot of small business owners hardly have a pension. But so expanding on that, I think it is important that pensions have to be secured, that they're not touchable, and to become an object of using other business. So I think it is important to have secured pension plans. Some people also recognize that the pensions are not enough, so we propose a guaranteed livable income, and that should be it should be at least $20,000 per person to have, as instead of having all these guaranteed income subsidies and all those patchwork programs, make it simple and say that $20,000 is not taxable. And that will take care of a lot of people in poverty and give us more security.
Thank you, Gerard.
Well, we have to respect the fact, or acknowledge the fact rather, that 7 out of 10 Canadians don't have a workplace pension. And so we have to make sure that those people, when they retire, are actually provided for. Now, an NDP government wants to increase the GIS. We have 200,000 seniors in this country living in poverty, and that's a fact that we need to address. And the way we can do that, as I said, increase the GIS, bring those seniors out of poverty, it costs $400 million. That's less than the Conservatives spent on advertising, just doing the government's job. Now, they could have at any time increased the CPP before an election period, and I ask you to remember that they didn't. They did not do that. And Huron-Bruce, particularly Bruce County, higher than average senior population. And we're going to see that double by the year 2030. And so we have to be prepared for this. And one way that we can actually keep our communities strong and keep people healthy and confident is by allowing them to not live in poverty. If they're able to go out, spend money in their communities, take care of themselves, take care of their health, we can save them long-term health costs, we can increase the bottom line for small businesses. And when it does come to small businesses, the NDP's plan is clear. We want to cut the small business tax from 11 to 9%. We want to make sure that small manufacturers are able to purchase equipment so that they can better themselves, so they can grow their businesses, hopefully hire more people, and also take a very good regional look at what the needs are, how we can address the skills gap, and provide local training and education to make sure that we're able to fill those jobs as they arise.
Thank you, Gerard. Ben?
I think the question was on Kathleen Wynne and Justin Trudeau's pension plan. We're against that. What that's going to do, there's not a person in this room that will benefit from this plan. You will pay into it, but the amount that you benefit will be virtually nil. In addition to that, there will be hundreds of thousands of job losses because small businesses will not be able to afford to pay anymore. Like I mentioned earlier tonight, for every $60,000 of income, the employee pays $1,000 and the employer will pay more. Businesses can't afford that. I've knocked on thousands of doors. I've talked to all sorts of different business owners. They're maxed out. They can't pay any more payroll taxes. So that's what we're not going to do. We're not going to do Kathleen Wynne and Justin Trudeau's plan. We brought in the tax-free savings account. We doubled it to $10,000 per year. Justin Trudeau said he's going to cut it back to $5,000. That's a mistake. The RSPs and RIFs, when you retire, we took that age from 69 to 71 when you have to start being in a RIF. We also this year in the budget reduced the percentage that you have to take out when you turn 71 to allow your funds to last longer, from 7.5% roughly down to 5%. That's going to help allow your money to last longer. In this country, we are generous. This government under the leadership of Stephen Harper has taken more seniors out of poverty than any other before. The minimum income for a single senior is over $17,000 per year, and for a couple it's over $23,000 a year through old age security and the income supplement.
Thank you, Ben. Alan?
I think anyone who's knocked on thousands of doors in this riding would very quickly learn that for most seniors, current level of the CPP is just not enough. It's not enough to live on. We need to do something. We need federal leadership to look at ways of increasing the CPP. That doesn't happen with a magic wand. It happens with a government that can cooperate with its provincial counterparts and with employers to find out a way that we can improve what is already a good, stable plan, but to improve it. We need to look at other ways of helping our seniors. One of the reasons that provincial governments step forward with proposals for retirement pension plans is because of the lack of federal action. They are filling a void. And this is not just an issue for those who are now retired or facing retirement. This is an issue for all of us. It's an issue for my generation. People in their 40s and 50s with children are facing decisions about, am I going to save for my retirement or am I going to put my kid through school? So these are very important decisions for all of us. I think our government needs to take a leadership role. And I think when proposals come forward that we can find ways to help people save for their retirement, I don't think it's fair to call those taxes. This is money that you're going to get back in your retirement and that future generations are going to benefit from. I think it's pretty selfish to talk about how I'm not going to pay into this plan because I'm not getting every nickel of that back myself. I think this is something that we have to look at together. We have to look at for generations to come and make sure that we as a society invest in a dignified retirement for our seniors. That's what they deserve. And that's what you find is missing for a lot of people when you knock on thousands of doors.
Thank you, Alan. And we'll stick to the rural aspect of our area and with this next question, and we will begin with Gerard. Canada's experienced, this again from the floor, Canada's experienced economic turmoil, recession, jobs, especially in rural areas for young people, are hard to find. What will your party do to improve the economy and ensure working people earn enough to meet their needs? And we'll begin with Gerard, 2 minutes.
Okay. Well, it's a multi-generational approach, and I'm proud of this because the NDP is really seeing how it all ties together. And I spoke about this in I guess, my previous response. Part of it is bringing the retirement age back down from 67 to 65 and increasing the GIS so that people are not afraid of retiring, so they aren't forced to work another 5 years because they don't know where it's going to come from. Now, if we can do that, pardon me, and if retirement is a comfortable and dignified option, and people are able to take that option, we can open up some entry-level positions across Bruce and Huron County, and hopefully get some young adults, some young families coming back. Now, and again, with addressing young families in particular, where the other parties would kind of poke away at the bear, we want to actually go all out, create a $15 a day national child care program. Because I've talked to people up in Carden, they're paying $33 a day. I've talked to people in Zurich paying $51 a day for child care. And if you're a young family with precarious or low-paying work, one of you is going to be working strictly for the child care costs, and the other one is going to be working strictly to pay their housing costs, to pay their bills, to pay their car payments, and that just does not work. I mean, we've seen what mailing checks out does. You get $160 a month, that's great. Some people are paying almost double that per week per child. And so it's all about taking care of people, providing a low-cost service rather than just mailing them a check and expecting them to still pay 5 or 6 times that much in a month. We want to make sure that young families have affordable access to a national daycare program, and also we can encourage getting back into the workforce at that entry level and providing them a safe and secure place for them to come home to.
Thank you, Gerard. Ben?
Just make one point on Alan's comment about his pension plan. With Kathleen and Justin's pension plan, if you're a senior, the plan does nothing for you. That's the reality of it. That's why I don't tell people at the doors about it, because there's nothing to it. Thank you. For businesses, we've grown 1.3 million net new jobs since 2009, reducing taxes for small business, reducing taxes for corporations, reducing the regulatory burden so that businesses can grow and succeed in this country. We've also expanded trade. If you go up and down this riding, what you're going to find, ladies and gentlemen, employers are having a tough time finding employees. I hear this every single day, from entry-level positions right up to highly skilled, highly trained positions. That's a fact, and you can go to any business and you'll find they're having a tough time finding workers. In this area here in Bruce, we're what we would pretty well be considered fully employed, so that for everybody looking for a job, there is a job. With the latest 2 deals that we have completed with the CETA and the Trans-Pacific Partnership, in addition to the Canada-Korea Free Trade Agreement, we are heading into the golden years. We've already been in the golden years. These are the platinum golden years for agriculture. There's going to be more opportunities for all levels of jobs, from one end of Huron County to the other end of Bruce County. These are exciting times. If you're 15, 16, 17, 18 years old, there is going to be more opportunities than there's ever been before in this riding.
Thank you, Ben. Alan?
I think everybody in the room knows that a reality for rural communities like ours, for villages like Teeswater, is a rural brain drain. By definition, our young people, if they choose to pursue post-secondary education, if they want to go to college or university, they will leave our communities. So I know what the question is. I'm not sure what the answer to that is, to be honest. But I think we need to confront it head on. You drive through Teeswater on your way here tonight, and there are more vacant spots on the main street than there are occupied ones. And I think we need to work harder at all levels of government to try and come up with effective strategies for rebuilding and maintaining our rural communities, and making sure that we can create an environment where our young people can make their lives here, if that's what they choose to do. And I think that's a really major challenge. And part of it is about rural infrastructure. It is investing in our community to create not just good places to live and work, but places where you can enjoy cultural activities, you can enjoy sports and recreation. People with young families want those kinds of facilities for their children. So I think we need to look across the board at how we invest in our communities and make them attractive places for young people to settle down. And our employment situation is fairly good in the riding, but I think if you look at the recent data from the 4 County Planning Board, unemployment is rising in this riding. It has risen in this area. It has risen quite considerably in the last 2 quarters. And maybe that's a warning sign for us, that we can't just take that for granted.
Judith?
The Green Party is committed to kickstart the economy by investing in sustainable, like in retrofitting our buildings. We need an army of carpenters, and also by investing into clean tech. We have a lot of resources, and we just have to have a commitment to invest into infrastructure. For our young people, the unemployment rates are double than for the average adult, and we find it unacceptable that student loan that's $15 billion, that our government borrows money at prime rate and then charges the highest interest rate globally on student loans, and just collects the money even more aggressive. So we will commit to invest into education, but and have by 2020 tuition-free opportunities for youth to have a post-secondary education. But also it is very important to have not stop apprenticeship that are unpaid, and also give municipalities funds to hire students for various jobs in the municipalities, and we have budgeted $1 billion for that. That would offer 125,000 jobs.
Okay, thank you, Yuta. I think we'll take one more question if there are a few more here from the floor. We really want to keep this to agriculture. And also at the same time, we usually have about 5 or 6 candidates, and this would take much longer. We've gone through quite a few questions, and I thank you all for addressing them equally. I'll ask this question, and then maybe we'll start wrapping things up, if that's all right. Economic success is measured in many different ways. What measures do you consider the most important? And at what level do you consider these indicators of success to be good? Quote unquote good. We'll start with Ben to address this question. You have 2 minutes.
Well, you can start off by looking at how many jobs have been created since 2009. Like I mentioned that before, there's 1.3 million. You could look at national unemployment rates. You could look at people who are currently haven't been actively searching for jobs, but because the economy is so strong, they're now out looking for jobs where they haven't been before. There's a number of different measures. You can look at economic growth, growth in the economy. Our economy is going to grow over 2% this year, maybe close to 3%. You could look at surplus. You could look at the number of jobs in each and every paper. To give you one example, a couple of weeks ago, there was over 20 job postings in the Seaforth newspaper. Those are strong economic indicators. We have a very low unemployment rate. One of the spikes, to address one of Alan's comments, one of the spikes each year we see is the spike in education. And that happens every summer because of the way it works. And it goes up, and then in a couple of months it goes back down to about 4.5%. In this area, what are some of the measures? Obviously, unemployment rate, new jobs, new business starts. These are key indicators. Prices of homes, those are another one. We've had very strong home prices in this area. You can take a look at the price of agriculture land, very strong growth in agriculture price in the last 10 years. It's tripled. So even though some candidates may want to say it's doom and gloom in this area, it's actually booming. And we need to do everything that we can to make sure that we have the young people who are coming up through the ranks that can actually do the jobs that are out there and that are in the future. Like I said, these are the golden years in Huron-Bruce. There's all sorts of opportunities. We talk about the brain drain. That's incorrect. People can go away to school. They can come back. They can be fully employed, lead a great life. They can do it on the farm. They can do it in the city. They can do it or in the small towns. They can do it at Bruce Power. They can work at West County.
Thank you, Ben.
Anywhere you want. It's the greatest place to
Thank
live in
you.
the world.
And we'll allow the same amount of time down. And you to answer.
I'm not going to try and dazzle you or overwhelm you with statistics and numbers and job creation and growth figures and $1 million invested in this and that. I think one of the most important measures of success is knocking on someone's door and asking them how do they feel, what are their concerns, and I have to say, yes, this is a great community. This is a wonderful place to live. Everybody knows that. But I think you also find a lot of people who, in one way or another, sort of consider themselves middle class, ordinary Canadians who just feel as if they are struggling to get by. And I don't think that's pessimistic or doom and gloom. I think it's the reality. I think when you knock on doors and ask people how they're feeling, there's a lot of concern. And there are people, one of the primary concerns is a growing gap between, frankly, the rich and the poor. And they see people who are doing very well in this community, and that's true. I don't disagree. There are a lot of people who are doing very well. You knock on doors in some of these lovely neighborhoods, sort of in the bubble of Bruce Power, there are people who are doing very, very well. And very close by, you knock on the doors of people who are not doing so well, and who really need a government that is going to watch out for them and say it in a very straightforward way. It is time that we ask the 1% of Canadians who are doing very well to share and to help those who really are in need. And government has a key role to play in doing that. And I think that's a really important factor to keep in mind.
Thank you, Alan. Edith? Thank you. Edith?
Well, economic success, I find it's very important to balance our budget and to keep our debt low. So it is not acceptable for me to have a national debt of $700 billion. So it is important to have a plan how to pay this down. So having said that, I truly believe that we need to be economically successful. We have to invest into our future. And we have to invest into future technologies, not into old technologies that are risky and expensive and are not bringing us into the future. So we can look globally and see how that works. And so we have economic success is basically a balance as well of environment, economy, business, how we do business, and how our country, how is the people's well-being. So I think we probably have to expand on the normal GDP and all the other definitions and have a social measurement as well. And so I think we really have to see and agree and come together as a community and have a discussion about what is acceptable for us.
Thank you, Edith. Gerard?
Well, defining our economic success is tough. I mean, we do have an incredible amount of disparity here. And so economic success, I would say, links to social and health. When we are truly economically successful, people have jobs. People's basic needs are met. And that is a stumbling block that has been keeping us down for a long time. Go to any community here, any small community, and I've been on this for years, almost a decade now, social justice and trying to make sure that people's basic needs are met. I've been writing about this for years, meeting people, telling their stories, trying to get it done. There's a lot of invisible people in our communities. And so it's easy to go to work every day, come home, we get our paycheck. Yes, that's a degree of economic success. We are able to support ourselves, maybe support some local businesses in the meantime. But we are drastically failing on the social and health aspects of this. There are invisible people in this community, in every community in southwestern Ontario. They don't have jobs. They are caught in a system that makes them sell everything they own just to be able to get a little bit of benefit that they've been paying into previously. And it's that type of system that we really need to take a look at. If we can address the inequality, if we can actually start even taking a chunk out of that inequality, that's a step towards economic success. And with the NDP, we've been really trying to promote small manufacturers, trying to promote getting equipment to them that they need to be able to expand. We also want to make sure that we're matching education and skills training with those gaps so that we can fill all those job openings that are in the weekly papers, which you should buy and read, by the way.
Thank you, Gerard. As farmers, we're used to adapting and changing with the weather, so we're gonna ask one more question. We promised you the time that, and I'm glad everybody came today, so we're gonna stick to that, I suppose. And giving one more question, not necessarily agriculturally related, but that's what we have here in front of us. So from the floor, and this is. Quite, it's an issue that's a large amount of the population is aware of. So to address problems, and again, this is from the floor, and I'm not going to change the wording. To address problems in the Senate, it is likely necessary to open the Constitution. What would your party propose as changes to the Constitution? And would you consider new ideas, such as making Toronto a separate province? I just wanted to be clear that we are not going to change any of the wording in these questions. And we appreciate them all the same. So, Alan, you will begin with this one. And I can repeat the question if you'd like.
The Senate. Well, everyone knows about the Senate. Sadly, I think what we know most about in the last year or so is Senator Duffy and checks for $90,000 and expense accounts that were abused and misused, and a Prime Minister who put people in the Senate to act as media spokespeople, and an abuse of the Senate. People are pretty tired of the way the Senate operates. They're tired of hearing about scandals like Mike Duffy. It's easy to play to that and to say, let's just abolish it. Quite frankly, our Constitution makes it virtually impossible to abolish the Senate. And after 10 years of a Prime Minister like Stephen Harper, I actually think it's maybe a good idea to have a second chamber that can have a second look at legislation that is going through our Parliament. And I strongly believe that Justin Trudeau did more in one afternoon to reform the Senate than anyone has done in decades, by simply saying, put good people in the Senate. Let them do their jobs and leave them alone. Don't tell them how to vote. Don't whip the vote. Don't even let them sit with your caucus. This is what he did, and a lot of senators didn't like it. They were not allowed in the caucus room that day. They would sit as independents, albeit people who've been appointed by a Liberal Prime Minister and had Liberal points of view. I think we can fix the Senate and make it work. Appoint good people like Romeo Dallaire, who was an exceptional senator. Thanks.
Thank you, Alan. Yuta, 2 minutes.
I agree that there is a role for the Senate, and it is not a priority. It's not like right away that and it will take time to open the Constitution, but we do support that we have to have a discussion, and it should be a national discussion what the new Senate would look like. So we don't propose to abolish the Senate, but we want to end partisan and scandals with the Senate.
Thank you, Yuta. Gerard, you have 2 minutes.
All right. Well, the NDP's approach is as plain as the nose on my face: cut the dead weight, get rid of the Senate. Now, they will say it can't be done. They'll say you have to open up the Constitution, and nobody has tried. And really, if you don't try, you never know, and at least we've been making an honest effort to actually bring about some much needed reform in this country. Now, this is something that Harper promised to do, and instead, he sat on his hands and just didn't fill his appointments. Now, Mike Duffy, yeah, he's the poster boy for this whole scandal, but I'm sure he had some red colleagues. I don't know, I remember reading about that in some newspaper or other. There's quite a slew of them that are actually corrupt and taking advantage of this system, and unfortunately one good apple can't improve the quality of the bunch. So we want to get rid of them. We want to do what we can to do this. Now if that prompts further reforms, if it proves that this can't be done, we know, because we've actually tried to do it. But if you don't try, you don't know. And just a simple name change for senators, that doesn't do it. I mean, that's optics, nothing more.
Thank you, Gerard. Ben?
Thanks very much. When I got into Toronto, I thought maybe Bill Murdoch wrote that question tonight. But, on the issue of the Senate, we need to be clear on this whole thing. We've tried everything we can do, putting term limits on, appointing senators that have been elected, like in Alberta. We referred that to the Supreme Court. They said both of those weren't allowed. Any question on Senate reform, you have to open up the Constitution. When you do that, you need to ask the Quebec questions. All those questions need to be answered. You saw that in the French debate Friday night. Gilles Duceppe, the first thing he said, you still haven't answered the Quebec questions. So I'm not sure the country's ready to open up the Constitution at this point in time. We have a relative peace right now with that. In regards to Senator Duffy, yes, he made some mistakes. Have the Liberal senators make equally egregious mistakes? Yes. Senator Mac-Harp was ordered to repay, Liberal Senator Mac-Harp was ordered to repay over $230,000, nearly 3 times as much as Mike Duffy. So there have been problems in the Senate. They've improved the financial department and the accounting and the payment of those expenses so that it won't happen again. And as far as what the Liberals have done under Justin Trudeau, it's really nothing, because if you go on the website tonight and look up Senator Jim Munson, it'll be Liberal Senator Jim Munson. So not letting them sit in caucus doesn't do anything. They're still considered Liberal senators, and when they come to this riding, they call themselves Liberal senators. So do there need to be changes? Yes, but there is definitely no simple answer to the question.
Thank you, Ben, and thank you to all the candidates for answering a lot of questions. I think we got through 9 from the floor, and as well as our own. We touched on a lot of topics, and I hope our audience is satisfied with their ability to get to all those questions as we did. You will now have a chance to put in your closing remarks. We're going to go in reverse order, starting with Ben. We say here we have 1.5 minutes. I think we'll allow 2 minutes, just because there was a large range of topics that we did talk about, and this is a large riding, and we have a lot of worthy people to hear your closing remarks. So, beginning with Ben, then Gerard, Yuta, and finishing with Alan.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank everybody for coming out tonight. It was a good debate. It's great to see a good crowd out here tonight. And, I always say that I feel like there's a high level of debate in Huron-Bruce, and I think each and every candidate did a great job representing their party tonight. Our government understands that hardworking Canadian farm families and the businesses they run are key drivers to our economies. Under previous Liberal governments, Canadian farmers and farming communities were neglected and left to face the significant challenges of modern-day farming without the right tools or support. Since 2006, our government has taken action for Canada's farm families by delivering the right tools and programs to help farm families deal with environmental challenges and uncertainties, investing in research and development so farmers can strengthen their production, working to secure the health and integrity of Canada's food supply, opening markets while continuing to protect and preserve jobs for Canadian farmers on tables around the world. Expanded free trade is a huge opportunity for our farmers and rural communities. Canada's prosperity is built on supplying agriculture and other products to the world, including many products locally grown and raised in Huron-Bruce. Our commitment on supply management is clear. We will defend supply management and protect our farmers. Ladies and gentlemen, only our Conservative government can be trusted to protect and preserve jobs for Canadian farmers, balance the budget, keep taxes low, and protect benefits for all Canadians. On October 19th, I ask you to support Ben Lobb. Vote Ben Lobb, vote Conservative. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Gerard, you have 2 minutes.
All right, I'm going to stray from my prepared remarks. And that's kind of frightening for both of us here. But I want to talk about patterns in politics, and that's a huge thing, because as I said in the beginning, we have been alternating for 150 years between red and blue. It's a pattern, it's a self-defeating pattern. Now, if we look closer than that, we can see patterns from all the major parties. If we look at the Liberals, they were against C-51 until they decided to vote for C-51. They were against deficits until they promised 3 deficits. Again, you promise to be all things to all people, and you're going to let everybody down. Now, the Conservatives, they will say manufacturing's never been better, even as factories close. They will say our environmental regulations have never been stronger, this country's never been greener or meaner. Meanwhile, they are gutting environmental regulations. Now, do you see the pattern here? They're tough on crime, but then they throw roadblocks up when corrupt Conservative senators are under investigation. Do you see the pattern here? The NDP was started by farmers, by workers, social Christians. And we are still very much the party of rural communities, workers. We are still very much in tune with those social Christian principles that made us in the first place. Now, in 2011, we wanted to get seniors out of poverty. In 2015, we want to get seniors out of poverty. In 2011, we wanted to address the fact that young people are leaving our communities. In 2015, we want to address the fact that young people are leaving our communities. So I'm going to ask you to look past that red and blue alternating and realize that there is so much more to Canada's political spectrum than red and blue, and you've been fed the same lines for 150 years. So I'm asking you to vote for me, vote for change, vote NDP.
Thank you, Gerard. You have 2 minutes.
My friends, I'm here as your candidate to be your representative in Ottawa, and I'm willing to work together. And I'm the only candidate, it doesn't matter what color I wear. I bicycle through Huron-Bruce, and I lead by example. I certainly, my party, my leader allows me to work for you first, to put your interest first. How many candidates have that freedom? How many other parties give that freedom? If you don't vote party line, you usually lose your voice. So what you see is what you get. I'm committed, I'm honest, and I believe in leadership that truly does share the facts how they are and consult with people that make them equal partners. I've experienced arrogance from political leaders myself, and I truly think that we deserve better. All of us vote, all of us pay for the government we want. So I need your help to restore this democracy through your participation and through your input. This will happen. On October 19th, I ask you to vote for Jutta Splatzdasser, and I ask you to vote for a government that works together.
Thank you, Lila. Alan, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you very much, everyone, for coming out here tonight. This is a very important election, one of the most important in a generation. Thanks for organizing the debate. And thank you especially to whoever the person was who submitted that first question. What kind of Canada do you want to see? I think that is the question of this election. What kind of Canada do you want to see? And when Mr. Lobb answered that question, he talked about what he would continue doing, more of the same. And I just don't think that's a satisfactory answer to the question, what kind of Canada do you want? And the rest of the response was essentially to attack opponents here and in Ontario and in other governments. It sounds a bit like Stephen Harper's attack ads. And I think we deserve better. We deserve better as Canadians than a Harper government, a Stephen Harper approach that is mean and nasty and not very ambitious. I think in this election, Canadians deserve a leader and a Prime Minister who's optimistic, confident, and hopeful that Canada can do better. Canada does not deserve a leader who wants to win your vote by scaring you, through fear, and by making you suspicious of your neighbors and fellow Canadians. Canada deserves better. Huron-Bruce deserves better. I ask you to vote Liberal, vote for Alan Thompson on October 19th. I think it's time for a government and a leader that is optimistic, confident, and hopeful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I do have a note from the table at the back stating that we had 32 different questions submitted tonight. Thanks to all of you. We apologize that we couldn't get to all of them. We tried to, there's a lot of similar questions, so we tried to put them all together and, and keep the variety in place. And if your specific question wasn't asked, we apologize. We can't possibly get to everything. First of all, I think I would like everybody to show their appreciation for our candidates for joining us. And on behalf of the Bruce County Federation of Agriculture, I'd like to thank all of you for showing your interest in the local politics in our area, showing interest in specifically in agriculture, as you're all here today to hear answers for and to. There are refreshments at the back. The advanced polls are open until June 6th. I hope this evening has allowed you to understand. June! Holy. Forget that one. When are they open till? Thanksgiving weekend. Yeah, Thanksgiving weekend. Okay, good. Don't go anywhere. Summer's over. Get out there, harvest those beans. I hope this evening has allowed you to understand where each candidate stands on the issues, and that you all exercise your right to vote, not on June 12th. It says that here too. And more at one of the advanced polls. Thank you for coming, and safe travels to all of you.